Breaking tonight, new fallout from what looks like a serious health scare for Hillary Clinton, as both she and her husband do new interviews in an effort to convince America that she is healthy enough to possibly serve as our next president. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. At this hour, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be attending a fundraiser in California. Instead, she's at her home in Chappaqua, New York, unable to travel due to illness, and having to resort to a telephone interview in the last hour to knock down questions about her condition. You may recall her campaign had insisted for days that her series of campaign trail coughing fits were nothing more than seasonal allergies. That was until she attended the 9/11 memorial yesterday, and a now viral video showed her collapsing as she left. At first, the campaign kept the press in the dark about her condition. Then they said she was simply overheated. That was all, only to finally reveal hours later that she had actually been diagnosed with pneumonia days earlier. We'll discuss it all with Chris Stirewalt, Howie Kurtz, and Dr. Mark Siegel in a moment, but we begin tonight with Trace Gallagher reporting from our West Coast newsroom. Trace?
Megyn, Hillary Clinton now claims she thought her cough really was allergies until she got diagnosed with pneumonia on Friday morning. She never explained tonight on CNN why she didn't disclose her illness to reporters on Friday night. And even on Sunday, after leaving a 9/11 event early, collapsing, and having to be dragged into a van by Secret Service, the campaign said Mrs. Clinton was just overheated. It took several more hours after the video went viral before the campaign finally released a statement from Clinton's doctor revealing she had been diagnosed with pneumonia and was dehydrated. At that point, even a top Democrat took a swipe at the veil of secrecy surrounding Secretary Clinton, apparently lumping everything from emails to illness. Former Obama senior advisor David Axelrod tweeted, quoting, "Antibiotics can take care of pneumonia. What's the cure for an unhealthy penchant for privacy that repeatedly creates unnecessary problems?" The Clinton campaign has since acknowledged mishandling information about the illness and claims to be working with her doctor on a full release of medical records that will show Mrs. Clinton has, quote, "no other undisclosed condition." Mrs. Clinton was not asked tonight about a report in our cousin publication, the New York Post, saying that after she collapsed on Sunday, she opted out of going to the emergency room and instead ditched her New York police escort and went to her daughter Chelsea's apartment. The Post says the move was to keep details of her medical treatment under wraps. The Clinton campaign has dismissed that. Mrs. Clinton walked out of her daughter's apartment, as you see, an hour later, saying she felt great. But tonight, former President Clinton told Charlie Rose this apparently has happened before. Watch.
Well, if it is, it's a mystery to me and all of her doctors. Rarely, but on more than one occasion over the last many, many years, the same sort of things happened to her when she just got severely dehydrated.
Tonight, Hillary Clinton says it's only happened twice that she can recall. Clinton says she plans to take a few more days off the trail. Her husband will pinch hit for her in the meantime. Megyn.
Trace, thank you. Again, both Mr. and Mrs. Clinton spoke about this in just the last couple of hours. You just heard some of that. We have more. But first, we want to bring in Chris Stirewalt, our Fox News digital politics editor, Howie Kurtz, host of Media Buzz on Fox News, and Dr. Mark Siegel, a Fox News medical correspondent and NYU professor of medicine. Great to see you all. All right, so first of all, the question of whether it's happened before or whether this is an isolated incident. She was asked about that moments ago. Here is how she described her own history with what we saw on video yesterday. Watch.
How often has this happened?
Oh, I think really only twice that I can recall. You know, it is something that has occurred a few times over the course of my life, and, you know, I'm aware of it.
I don't know. You tell me, Stirewalt, whether that had the ring of truth.
Man, there is a reason Clintonian is an adjective, and this is some Clintonian business that's going down here. Bill Clinton says, rarely, it's so legalistic, rarely, but on more than one occasion over many, many years, so that it's open enough so that it covers all of the bases. The bases are covered, counselor. there's wiggle room at the end. So you say, oh, I guess I forgot about that other time I passed out. I forgot about the other time I collapsed. So the Clintons are Clintoning in full Clinton fashion tonight.
Right. It just raises more questions. It's like, if I ask you, seriously, to the viewers sitting at home, if I say to you, how many times have you fainted in the past 10 years? Would you have to be like, well, it's like, none. I have never fainted in the past 10 years. I have it at the ready. I mean, you tell me whether she answered more questions or created more, Howie.
Well, it really created more based on the fact that it's now the #1 story in the campaign. You know, Megyn, I was anchoring yesterday when the news broke, and what was stunning was not that she has pneumonia. Lots of people get pneumonia, but the realization that Hillary Clinton and her campaign spent days blatantly misleading the press and the public about her health. Now, imagine an alternative universe where on Friday, before the shaky 9/11 video and all that, she put out a statement. You know, I've got pneumonia. I'm going to take it easy a few days. It's a grueling campaign out there. People would have felt sympathy for her. Instead, this mishandling is causing more damage than a mere infection.
I can defend her on that. I think, okay, you know, you're running for president. You have a grueling schedule. You're tough. You get a diagnosis of pneumonia. Obviously, it wasn't, you know, a catastrophic diagnosis because she did do a lot on Friday. And you think, I don't need to disclose. There's a lot of people get pneumonia. Why do I have to run into? It's not like I got a cancer diagnosis, right? But when she collapsed and tried to get the press pool away from her, Steyerwalt, and then they tried to give us a bunch of baloney that she was just overheated, which was not true. That's when people said, there's more here.
And if you are a person who is about 2/3 or close to 2/3 of the American electorate says is not honest and trustworthy, if you are that person and you are also a person with a history of health problems, including some serious ones, what is the dadgum only thing that you should never make sure that you ever do? Lie about your health. Don't do it. Big mistake.
Although her doctor says she is in excellent health, her doctor says this is pneumonia, and that she said tonight she needs to rest for 5 days and she's going to go back out there. Dr. Siegel, can I ask you about something else in this video? I'm not going to ask you to diagnose Hillary Clinton over the airwaves. I know you can't and you won't. But she did say tonight that she never lost consciousness. And I have to tell you, I'm not a medical professional, but that just doesn't look like it could be real based on this video. I mean, this doesn't look like dizziness. This looks like she went down, like she did lose consciousness, but what are your thoughts?
Well, number one, Megyn, it is a video, but you're picking up something there, which is there seems to be a loss of muscle tone, and that happens when you're in the process of blacking out. All of these questions are raising more questions. We need to know. You know, she fell and hit her head back in 2012. After that, I'd like to see the neurological records. I would want to see the MRIs. The less information we have, the more we're going to be prone to speculating. Howie knows how that works in the media. If we don't have the facts, we speculate. We cannot make a diagnosis here, and no doctor should. But we've seen enough. By the way, pneumonia, Megyn, I don't think it's such a minor thing. You know, you're given a diagnosis. If I diagnose somebody with pneumonia on a Friday, and pneumonia is usually a diagnosis made by a chest X-ray. You see a blotch there. An elderly person, if they had a fever, you know, Bill Clinton says she's dehydrated. Well, wait a minute. People don't walk around dehydrated. So if you get dehydrated enough from an infection to the point where you may black out or you have a fever, why would she be going to a memorial service? This is all questions.
Well, I have another question for you on that, Dr. Siegel. If she has pneumonia, I know you can get either viral or bacterial, right? But in either one, should you be at a crowded memorial event? Should you be shaking hands with a bunch of people? Should you be hugging a little girl? Should you be going to visit your daughter with her 2 babies?
Absolutely not. And by the way, you can't always tell the difference between viral and bacterial pneumonia. That's probably why Dr. Bardak put her on antibiotics. If she's coughing, if she had something on an X-ray, if she had a fever, she gave her antibiotics just to make sure.
You should be condemn her for being irresponsible, right, with the shaking of the hands. The question is whether we're being given the straight truth about what she's actually ailing from. Wait, I want to get this soundbite in about the transparency. This is how she's trying to spin it now to put it back on Trump. Can you listen? Watch.
Donald Trump's doctor said he'd be the healthiest president in history. That's just not even serious. And I've released nearly 40 years of tax returns. He hasn't released one. This is a man with unknown numbers of partners and investors who says he's doing 120 foreign deals. The American people deserve to know what he's up to and what he is hiding. So if we weren't fast enough, you know, I've talked to my staff. We take responsibility for that. But the information is out there. You can't say the same thing about Donald Trump.
Howie?
You know, this carries uncomfortable echoes of the email scandal where information had to be dragged out over a period of months. And when a politician is cornered, they try to deflect. So rather than talk more about her own health problems and the fact that, you know, that the campaign was not straight, even on the day that it happened, ditching the press pool, she goes to Donald Trump's tax records. Now, Donald Trump should release his tax records. That's a separate issue. Even Hillary Clinton's liberal allies are having trouble defending her on this one.
As we saw in that Axelrod tweet. Great to see you all. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Megan.
You bet.
Also breaking tonight, a late-day hearing on Clinton emails explodes into angry exchanges.
What information do you believe that Congress does not have the right to see?
Judge Andrew Napolitano and Larry Sabato are next on a Clinton campaign taking fire from all sides. And what would happen if she had to drop out of this race over health? Wait until you hear how that works next. Plus, Governor Chris Christie joins us to answer new charges that millions of Trump supporters are nothing more than a bunch of racist, sexist homophobes.
Why not just say on Friday, as you said apparently to Senator Schumer on Sunday, you know, I have pneumonia, folks. I'm going to power through it. Why keep it a secret?
Well, I just didn't think it was going to be that big a deal. You know, I know Chuck said today he didn't tell anybody. It's just the kind of thing that if it happens to you and you're a busy, active person, you keep moving forward.
Breaking tonight, that was more from the phone interview Mrs. Clinton did last hour over on CNN as she recovers from some sort of health scare this weekend. So what if this thing is worse than they're letting on and she actually has to drop out? Joining me now, Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, and the director of UVA's Center for Politics, Larry Sabato. Great to see you both. So this is actually reported by Cokie Roberts today, who said that for members of the Democratic Party, it has them very nervously beginning to whisper about her stepping aside and finding another candidate. Let me start with you on that, Judge. If they wanted to do that for some reason or needed to, who would decide who was going to be at the top of the Democratic ticket?
The Democratic National Committee has all the power of the Democratic National Convention when the convention is not in session. So the 104 members of the DNC, the committee, by a simple majority vote, could remove her from the ticket and replace her.
With anybody? With Tim Kaine? With Joe Biden? With anybody?
Anybody who is a natural-born American and 35 years or older. Those are the only two requirements in the Constitution.
Wow, that's fascinating. Now, this is all, you know, obviously we're ahead of our skis, but the point is, according to this reporting that Cokie Roberts offered on NPR, suggesting it's unlikely, of course, as well, but saying that this is being rumored. Larry, question for you. A lot of people, when they saw that yesterday, said, oh, she's done. She's done. You know, that it's over. Now she's come out with pneumonia. I'm fine. I'm back on the campaign trail in a couple days. What say you as to the long-term effect of all this?
Probably nil. First of all, she's very likely to recover from everything that I've seen unless they're hiding something. Second of all, having worked as hard as she's worked to get the nomination, I don't think you're going to see any Clinton, particularly this Clinton, step aside. And the third thing, and this is very important, Megan, people in this election have overwhelmingly made their decisions. The percentage is very, very high. These two candidates have strong profiles. People feel very strongly, whichever one they've chosen, they're very unlikely to switch.
But what about the independents? You know, that sort of group of independents in the middle. Are they not up for grabs?
There are a very small number of independents that actually aren't leaning one way or the other. A lot of people claim to be independents, but they're actually what we call hidden partisans. And when you push them a little bit in polling, they very quickly identify with one candidate or the other.
They just want attention. They just want people to keep coveting them and running after them and trying to get their vote. All right, so your prediction is this doesn't change the polls, and does it change your electoral map at all?
It doesn't change anything as far as I can see. It doesn't change the map. If there's any reaction in the polls, Megan, I think it's going to disappear within a week or two, again, assuming she fully recovers, and that's what the people close to her are saying.
Okay, now I want to shift gears and go to the judge, because something big happened on Capitol Hill this evening in a hearing at the House Oversight. They were cross-examining the FBI.
Correct.
About, you tell us, give us the overview before we play the soundbite.
This is the House Governmental Oversight Committee, chaired by Congressman Jason Chaffetz, is furious that the FBI has released selected portions of its file about Mrs. Clinton. At the same time the FBI was being interrogated by Congressman Chaffetz, his opposite number in the Senate, Senator Grassley, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, was making a speech about the same thing.
Okay, so both bodies are upset. Quickly, go ahead.
How did the FBI decide what to keep secret and what to release, and how can they do that to the Congress?
Our representatives feel that the FBI held back too much, that our representatives get to see more. And watch what happened when the FBI testified today.
Will the FBI provide to Congress the full file with no redactions of personal identifiable information?
I cannot make that commitment sitting here today.
Then I'm going to issue a subpoena, and I'm going to do it right now. So let's go. I've signed this subpoena. We want all the 302s, and we would like the full file. You can accept service on behalf of the FBI?
Certainly.
You are hereby served.
This is dramatic and legally effective. The FBI, which rarely receives subpoenas, received one on national television. They will have to go to a federal judge now to argue why they shouldn't have to comply with that subpoena.
They're going to have to give up a lot of information about who they talked to in the Hillary investigation that they didn't want to give up.
Precisely. They can't tell the Congress what the Congress can read and not read.
Fascinating. Judge, great to see you. Larry Sabato, you too. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
Also tonight, new fallout after a number of NFL players decide to protest the national anthem on 9/11. Plus, Hillary Clinton refers to millions of Trump supporters as, quote, racist, sexist, and homophobic. And that was just the warm-up. Governor Chris Christie has showed he's here. Emma Kelly filed to respond. Before outspoken New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd makes her very first Kelly File appearance with some wild stories showing why this election is unlike any other. Don't go away.
Speaking to wealthy donors, Hillary Clinton called tens of millions of Americans deplorable.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
People like you, and you.
Well, that was just part of a new ad just released today by the Trump campaign on what has become a hot issue. Hillary Clinton made remarks at a fundraiser this weekend that painted many Trump supporters as hateful. Watch.
You know, to just be grossly generalistic, you could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. And unfortunately, there are people like that. And he has lifted them up.
We have a powerful lineup for you on the fallout for both campaigns tonight, including Governor Chris Christie with the word from Donald Trump's inner circle, and best-selling author and New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd on the fallout for Hillary. But first, we go to campaign Carl Cameron, who was at the site of an earlier Trump event in Asheville, North Carolina, with how this played out on the trail today. Carl?
Well, very aggressively, obviously, Megyn. From the moment Hillary Clinton uttered her basket of deplorables line, the Trump campaign was getting ready to run ads. And now that ad blitz will go in the 4 most key states for Donald Trump: Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and here in North Carolina. And it'll be a very aggressive multi-million-dollar buy. Trump is making the argument that Hillary Clinton is debasing and deriding the American public, American voters. And to illustrate his disagreement with that, he brought a handful of folks up on stage today to explain why they, black, white, Hispanic, were not xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, or any of the others, and trashed Hillary Clinton, saying that this statement makes her now officially unelectable. Watch.
Hillary Clinton has been running a hate-filled and negative campaign with no policy, no solutions, and no new ideas. Hillary Clinton can never be president of this country. Not. What she just said shows what a low opinion she has of the American people. We just can't let that happen, folks.
it's provided an incredible opportunity for Donald Trump, a man whose campaign started out with him talking about a ban on Muslim visitors and immigrants coming to this country, who referred to illegal Mexican undocumented aliens as rapists and criminals. And now he's got the upper hand, accusing Hillary Clinton of being the hater, so much so that he's essentially ignoring her health issues, focusing only on this for the time being. He'll be in Philadelphia tomorrow. Another opportunity for him to go into the inner city and talk about issues for minorities and those who need more economic opportunity, and again contrast what was thought to be his disadvantage as an advantage over Hillary Clinton for her basket of deplorables line. Megan.
Carl, thank you. Joining me now, Trump surrogate and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Governor, great to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Megan.
Do you find it ironic that she sat there and said that in front of a sign that read "Stronger Together"? The unifier?
Yeah, her whole campaign has become very ironic. And this is the person who's supposed to be, according to Barack Obama, the single most qualified person ever to run for president of the United States. I'm sure that Thomas Jefferson and George Washington are really spinning in their grave at that one.
Well, Trump says he's the most qualified.
Well, and she has no plan. She has no plans, no substantive things that she's put forward. Now, she says she's going to bring the country together, yet she says that half of Donald Trump's supporters are deplorables, and that they're all kinds of racist, xenophobic, all the rest of it. You heard all of it. The fact is that this is a campaign that is just trying to run out the clock. She's devoid of any ideas. And by the way, the worst part of that is she's an elitist. 25 years in Washington, D.C. from Hillary Clinton. She's a Washington, D.C. elitist who now believes anybody else is beneath her.
You know, her people say she's not the elitist. She wasn't born with a silver spoon in her mouth like he was. She wasn't raised in these New York City circles. She doesn't have a picture of herself at Mar-a-Lago in her white tennis outfit. You know, they're trying to say he's the elitist. She actually pulled herself up from nothing.
Well, what she did was she and her husband set up a foundation that made them wealthy after they left office. And that's what she did. So now, if you want to call that,
she spent her entire life in government service, except for her law firm years.
But Megan, if you listen to her, she was flat broke when she left the White House.
Right.
Okay, so all the pulling up by the bootstraps before then, I'm not to any way demeaning how hard she may have worked, but she said she was flat broke when she left the White House. Now all of a sudden they are multi-millionaires from foreign countries, from big corporations.
They paid Bill Clinton for speeches right after they did a solid for the company.
Yeah, and as Secretary of State, you wrote a check to the foundation. You got to go into the Secretary of State's office and have a meeting. I mean, if you call that pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, I call it ripping off the American people.
Well, I'm talking about the difference between how they were raised and what kind of families they came from. But I want to ask you this, because she's talking about he's talking about her now running a hate-filled and negative campaign. That was Trump saying she's running a hate-filled campaign. That's been her allegation about him all along. And even though this is obviously a huge political blunder by her, do you think she has any sort of a point in raising that with him? Because, as you know, he has made some points that have been very controversial, like the Mexican judge can't decide my case because he's, quote, Mexican, but he's not Mexican, he's from Indiana.
Well, listen, I think that Donald has said and gave a speech in North Carolina that I think was a meaningful moment in this campaign when he said that if he said things during the campaign that have hurt people, that he has real regret for that.
Well, he didn't name anything, Governor. He didn't take responsibility for a single remark.
Sure, he took responsibility for the fact that if he said things that hurt people, he regrets it. Have you heard Hillary Clinton say that? Megan, but seriously
what
now.
What kind of taking responsibility is that? If somebody on your staff came to you and said, you know, I'm sure I've done some wrong things over the past, like, 8 years, and I take responsibility. That's meaningless.
Well, that's not 10 or 8 years. Here's the thing. Hold the two of them to the same standard. Hillary Clinton does not express regret over the things that she's done and said about Donald Trump and what she calls
She says she regrets his comment. She's sorry as a political matter.
She regrets it because it's now been stuck in her ear on national television, not only by paid media, but by free media who thinks it's ridiculous.
She said it repeatedly. Nobody called it to her attention the first time. That's a really stupid and offensive thing to say.
Yeah, well, you know why? Two reasons. One, she doesn't have people around who speak the truth to her. That's pretty obvious. And secondly, the other problem is she believes it. That's what she believes. You know, sometimes people say things over and over again that are wrong where we sit back and say, how could they possibly say that? Here's how. They believe it.
All right, I got to ask you one other thing.
Sure.
So I haven't seen you since you became a Trump surrogate, and you took a lot of heat from people for that. And I just went back and looked at Jennifer Rubin, conservative columnist for the Washington Post, wrote that you'd been ruined by it. You'd gone from someone admired for your political talent to the object of derision as an errand boy.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, well, seriously, I don't really care what someone like Jennifer Rubin says if I'm an object of derision to her, because what I'm trying to do and make sure that Hillary Clinton doesn't get into the White House, I think I'm doing the right thing.
Governor, great to see you.
Thanks, Megan. Great to be with you.
Joining us now with more in a Kelly File. First, New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd. She has a new book out tomorrow entitled The Year of Voting Dangerously, The Derangement of American Politics. Maureen, great to have you here.
Thank you, Megan.
This is an award-winning, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, so we're honored to have you here. I want to start with, because you have been tough, very tough on both sides. And I can't tell who you're going to vote for. I'm not going to ask you that. But it's not like, I know our viewers are thinking, New York Times! But you've been just as tough on her as you have on him. Basket of deplorables. What did you think when you heard that?
Well, the first thing I thought is that's my family they're talking about. Because
Trump supporters.
Yeah, because I have essays in the book by my brother and sister who are both explaining why they're going to vote for Trump. And it gave me a very interesting insight into what Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell must be thinking but can't say. You know, how your kind of average khaki-wearing, golf-playing country club guy like my brother is twisting and turning a little bit about voting for Trump because he really wants Hillary to be defeated. But on the other hand, after the Khan family mess, you know, he called me and he said, can I kill the essay? And I said, no, it's already gone to print.
The Muslim family, the Gold Muslim family.
You know how it is with Trump. Every day and every hour, they change their mind about whether they can support him. And my sister got off the bandwagon after Trump retweeted the unattractive picture of Heidi Cruz. And I told that to Trump. I said, you lost my sister's vote. This is in the book. And he paused and he said, are you serious? And I said, yes. And he goes, well, you know, it wasn't that unattractive a picture. And I said, yes, it was. Why don't you just apologize for it? And he apologized. So that was an amazing. That was an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah. And that, well, I remember that column because you mentioned me in there and my dust up with him, suggesting this is not helping you.
Well, I think he also kind of came around and realized that was true of you, because the first time I interviewed him in this cycle, he asked me about the question you had asked him at the debate, and I said, it is absolutely legitimate. You are going to have to explain all of those misogynist comments about women, and, you know, you should have just answered her. And then when it continued, I said, there's no way, your numbers are dropping with women. There is no way you can take on this respected newswoman and expect to have women come around to you. And I think he thought about that too.
Well, thank you for that. I was glad to put that mess behind us. But let's talk about her some more, because so much has happened just in the past couple of days. You've been studying the Clintons for a long time.
Right.
This business with her health.
Right.
They want us to give them pneumonia, that they knew that since Friday, that half the team has pneumonia. Have they earned it? Have they earned the benefit of the doubt, the Clintons?
No, and, you know, I agree with David Axelrod, who said it isn't about the health, it's about the stealth. The health issue this week is a perfect microcosm of why she has problems. And, you know, I started covering her in '92 when she first came on the scene, just as I did Trump in '99. And that's why I thought, you know, I could give some context to this. And this is the exact same pattern she follows every time, where Trump has his wall and she has her wall of defensiveness and secretiveness and just pushing back. The press can't know anything. And each time it gets worse, because that spirals into a snowball. And the press and her foes get into a frenzy. And then the whole thing is so much worse when it starts out as relatively mundane.
Yeah, and what I love about you, some people have criticized Maureen Dowd for being too focused on the person and not enough on the policy in her columns. That's what I love.
Right.
Because we can get the policy anywhere. I like the introspection that you can offer on any given person. I mean, you force us to sort of get into their psyche. And here's just one line, right, from an excerpt from the book, talking about this is the most epic battle of the sexes between Trump and Clinton. The former First Lady and first woman ever to run for president as the nominee of a major party is going up against a thrice-married Rat Pack reality TV star who still calls women sweetheart and rates their racks. That's just in the introduction. This is my kind of book. It's called The Year of Voting Dangerously, and it's got a great cover, too. But it's stories that help you get to know the candidates in a way that's not going to bore you to death. In fact, it's actually really entertaining, and I appreciate you writing it and for being here, too, on the Kelly File Morning.
Thanks, Megan.
Good luck with it.
Thank you.
So it's not introspection when you're offering it about somebody else, but you get my meaning. I get nervous when I'm talking to a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's like, crap, I don't think I'm saying the right words. And I wasn't. Coming up, while some NFL players decided to protest the national anthem on 9/11 of all days, a couple of players in New York went another way. Yesterday marked the 15th year mark since the September 11th attacks. On the same day millions of Americans gathered to remember that tragic day, there was more drama in the NFL, as some players took the field in protest, while others had a very different response. Trace Gallagher has the story in our West Coast newsroom. Trace?
Megan, some of the players are out to support 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Others are trying to continue the conversation that Kaepernick started. Kansas City Chiefs cornerback Marcus Peters had kind of a double moment. He linked arms with his teammates during the anthem to show unity with them, but also raised his fist in a move reminiscent of black athletes in the '68 Summer Olympics in Mexico City. Peters said his gesture was meant only as support, not disrespect. The initial plan for the Seattle Seahawks was the entire team was to kneel during the national anthem, but players close to the military vetoed the idea, and the team decided to link arms instead, saying the move was meant to honor those who have fought for freedom. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell says he supports the players' right to demonstrate, but says the NFL believes in patriotism, as long as it does not violate the league's uniform policy. Avery Williamson of the Tennessee Titans and Victor Cruz and Odell Beckham of the New York Giants all chose to wear cleats that featured messages of respect to those who died on 9/11. All three expect to be fined about $6,000 for the gesture. New York and New Jersey police associations will pay Williamson's fine, and we believe Beckham and Cruz could see their fines covered as well. Megan.
How about that? Trace, thank you. Up next, a special anniversary. 50 years. Can you tell me what it is? We'll be right back. 50 years since the premiere of the show, The Monkees. Yes. Used to love those reruns. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow night as Ivanka Trump joins me right here on the Kelly File for the very first time. Looking forward to that. Yay, see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock.